All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so thrilled you could join us for today's third edition of Conversations with Creatives, our webinar series here at Creative Circle, where we cover the hottest trending items that creative and marketers need to know about. My name is Emily Davis. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing at Creative Circle. And before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping items to go over. Just to let you all know that this webinar is being recorded. We will share the recording with everyone who is registered, and we will also be sharing a couple of slides, which we will also make available to you. If you have any questions for our panelists today throughout the discussion, we encourage you to please pop those in the Q&A function here in Zoom, and if we can get to them, we certainly will. All right, so today our focus is marketing technology, or Martech. We're excited to dive into this diverse and extremely timely topic. And to do so, I'm joined today by two Martech experts, digital strategist and Martech tool guru, Voloria Pettiford, and best-selling author of House of the Customer and host of award-winning The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlström podcast, Greg Kihlström. Welcome, Voloria and Greg, and thank you guys both for being here. We'll start with you, Voloria. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional background and how you got into Martech specifically?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Emily. I'm Voloria. I consider myself a marketing automation specialist. I live in Florida. I've been in the Martech space for over 10 years now. I primarily work in HubSpot, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I love learning new tools and helping marketing and sales teams find the proper solution. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Voloria. And Greg, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure, yeah. So Greg Kihlström. I've been working with Martech really my entire career. Started out as a product designer with some communications tools, and then I started a digital agency, worked with a lot of different Martech tools. We'll talk about some of those today. And I sold that agency about 6 years ago or so, and since then started the podcast, The Agile Brand. I'm still a consultant, but also wrote a few books and things like that. So yeah, really looking forward. I love marketing and I love Martech. I know that might sound weird or whatever, but like I love this stuff, so love talking about it. So looking forward to this.
Well, you're in good company. You're surrounded by lots of marketing nerds here. So today we're going to try and cover as much as possible, focused on Martech from two perspectives. As an individual marketer, we know we have lots of you who have joined today who are looking to master new technology or understand how you can use Martech to advance your career. And also from an organizational perspective, we've got some team leaders on this call who are interested in learning a little bit more about building, evaluating, and optimizing their tech stack. So let's start with some basics. What is Martech? And for those of you who have an opinion on this, and I'm sure you do, please feel free to pop it in the chat and give us your take. I do think Gartner sums it up nicely. Marketing technology, or Martech, is a set of integrated technologies that enables marketing capabilities such as efficiently and effectively targeting and acquiring and retaining customers. Now, I'm sure you'll hear that word a lot today as our discussion goes on, this notion of efficiency. As marketers, isn't that what we're all kind of challenged with driving? Whether you're joining the webinar with a lot or a little experience today, I'm fairly confident that everyone on this call has some level of proficiency in a couple of Martech tools. And the reality is it's increasingly embedding itself across all marketing disciplines. Why is it our topic for today? Well, thanks to our good friend AI, our tech stacks are rapidly evolving and organizations don't want to get left behind. The workforce wants to remain proficient and marketable. There are more options out there than ever. Teams have so many capabilities available to them that these types of investments can feel really pivotal. Martech is really back in the zeitgeist of marketing and a huge focus area for teams and hiring managers. So let's get down to business. Possibly one of our most asked questions before the webinar was this: what tools should I be learning and upskilling in? What is most popular right now? I'm sure you all have some opinions, and please do drop them in the chat. But Voloria, there's so many tools out there. Can you take us through a couple of your favorites?
Yeah, sure. Like you mentioned, there's so many. So starting out, let's just talk about CRMs. You may know this as customer relationship managers. This gives you the ability to hold all your data, how the lead comes in. You may know Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho is still out there, Microsoft Dynamics. So that's the top. Our next tier that you may want to learn about is project management. When I think about project management or PM tools, these are the tools that you need to get your work done, your day-to-day marketing operation type tools. You may be familiar with Asana or Monday. These are the tools that the teams will use to get the projects done. And then next, we have our content management systems. This is where the content lives, typically like your websites, WordPress, HubSpot, of course, is a CMS. You have Sitecore as well. And that's where we're going to also keep that data. So your landing pages, things of that nature. Next tier is data management. This typically gets a little bit of a higher level. And sometimes this is what senior leadership wants to see. This is where these tools are used to help you figure out the flow and the end result. Those results, therefore, can be found in 6 Sense or Segment. Those are some of the top ones. And our next tier are our marketing automation platforms, or MAPs. These are the actual channels that we deploy marketing tools through. HubSpot or Salesforce Pardot, which is now known as account engagement within Salesforce, or you may be familiar with MailChimp and Constant Contact. So these are just a few to give you guys an idea so you can look those up later.
Great, thanks, Voloria. And I did notice something in the chat around what's your take on Workfront? I think this is in the project management realm, but
yes,
spans a number of things.
Absolutely. There's so many out there. And as a job seeker, what I would really do, just kind of brush yourself up on a few of them. They all kind of do the same thing when it comes to project management tools. It's all about the project, the board, task, and subtask. But yeah, Workfront, we can add that to the list. Thank you. Anything else? Oh yeah, Notion. Notion's a good one too for content management. Thank you, Stacy.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So these are some of the top tools, not limited to this list. We also got a lot of questions from those that registered for this webinar around what these tools, not only what these tools do, but how they're growing and changing and improving and evolving, specifically when it comes to how AI is playing a role in that. So turn a question from our audience to Greg. How would you balance automation with the need for personalized and humanized customer interactions? And how does AI play a role in that?
Yeah, sure. So, and I think the important thing to know is that AI, just like Martech, is a broad topic. And I mean, this is a great list of representative products. But, you know, if you look at Scott Brinker's Lumascape, or there's like 13,000 Martech platforms and stuff. So, you know, AI, kind of the same thing. There's a lot of different, not only platforms, but I think a lot of what's gotten the attention lately is what's called generative AI, and that's things like ChatGPT and you know, Google Gemini and some other things like that. AI has been around for decades, and so some of the tools like Jira and Asana, you know, some of those project management tools that have automated tasks, like that kind of stuff has been around for, you know, 3-4 decades, or not those platforms, but the idea of automation in software. And so I think where the exciting part gets into is combining different types of AI. So we've got generative AI that can, you know, as the name suggests, generate new content based on commands. We've got automation that can take previous instructions and do things according to it. We've got predictive analytics, which can take past behaviors and make assumptions about what's going to happen in the future. Well, you get all three of those things working together, and then it really starts getting interesting. So I think where products are heading and where personalization is heading is okay, let's think beyond, okay, we have 4 different audience segments, so let's personalize to 3 different audience segments or 4 different or however. Let's start looking at the individual behavior of a person and start personalizing based on that. And so that combines that combines really a bunch of those different types of AI together, and it's going to yield better results because it's tailored to the individual.
That's great. And if anyone has been watching the Olympics, you will not have missed a Google Gemini commercial because they're all over there. So one of the second most common questions that we received, and also I've seen some folks asking in the chat already, is somewhere along the lines of how can I upskill as an individual, and where do I start? And so Voloria, I know that you have some thoughts and some guidance for those folks here. Where can they get started when it comes to diving into Martech and building their skill base?
Like Greg mentioned, there's so much out there, but I want to highlight the top, I would say 4. As you know, Salesforce has been dynamic, been out there for many decades now. You can start with the Salesforce Trailhead. It's kind of learn as you go on demand. So this is a great resource. You will not be able to capture everything, but it's a great way. You get badges. You literally go along the trail and become that Salesforce leader in the end. And of course, you mentioned me earlier talking about HubSpot. I've spent a lot of time in HubSpot. HubSpot does a great job of the HubSpot community, the knowledge base, and the academy. Within the academy, there's free certifications. So definitely look into those. And I would also say Google, right? Google's king. Google has some great free certifications out there for digital marketing. Start out on digital marketing, you kind of grow there as well. There's a lot out there. RevOps, are you going to be specific into automation? But you can kind of get a good gist of everything by starting with Google. And Google also has the Google Analytics Academy. That's my 4th one. So take a look at those when you get a chance, you guys.
Great. Thank you so much. And Greg, any additional tips for taking your career to the next level as a marketer when it comes to Martech?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is about, and these are great resources, by the way, all of them. And I think it is about figuring out what's the part of this that you want to play, right? So, we looked at the different types of tools. We're looking at some of the available resources, but there's another way to look at it still, which is, are you interested in customer data and understanding more about your customers? Are you interested in creating and distributing content, or are you interested in analytics and understanding how marketing is performing? There's probably a million ways to slice it, but that can also kind of guide you where you start looking, because you got to start somewhere. And you may start down one path and say, hey, you know what, I thought I was going to like this, but not so much. But it at least gives you some kind of broad ways to look. And then you could go to any of these places on the screen here now even, and probably get some information that points you kind of in that right direction.
Great. That's great advice. Okay, before we move on from this topic, let's have some fun with a little quick fire round. So these questions are going to be for both of you, and we can keep them short or feel free to expand. But for those, really in the job market, what are those job titles or career paths that are really in the now and that they should be looking out for?
I'll take a quick stab. We can kind of tag team. I'd say focus, kind of like what Greg mentioned. If you're a writer, maybe you want to go into content. If you're good with analytics, focus more on that level. It's so much into this. I think a big one that's really grown over the past couple of years is RevOps, which is revenue and operations put together, right? Kind of like Martech. That's a good space to be, because no matter what we do, no matter the channel, no matter the content, it's all about the revenue that comes back into the organization. So having a good grip and understanding of that makes you valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that too, of just, data in general is becoming more and more important, even to creatives. So, I think traditionally, there was sort of this separation between, okay, these people look at numbers and these people make the stuff. And those walls are coming down. And I think that's actually a great thing. I think the sooner that a creative learns to look more at numbers, and I think the sooner that a numbers person looks more at creative, and there's this kind of cross talking and stuff, I think we're just going to get better results. Because really at the end of the day, especially when we're talking about a world driven by AI, we need to understand things well before we start telling the machines or the platforms to start creating stuff for us and delivering content and all that. And so that means we all need to have a better understanding of more of the process. It doesn't mean that a designer has to become an analytics expert, but they need to understand some of the process so that they can make better designs and they can work better with their teammates.
Absolutely. All right. I'm building my Martech resume. What keywords should I include?
I mean, definitely something with AI in it. Let's just say, so let's just, but I think the resume needs to include like how you've used some of these tools to get success. I mean, CMOs, I think the trend over the years, like CMOs are getting, which I think is an amazing thing, they're getting taken a lot more seriously than they were years and decades ago. But it's because they're delivering and able to prove the value. They always were delivering value, but they're able to prove the value so much better now with better data. And so any marketer that's been able to do something but prove the value beyond, hey, this looked cool, or it was for this brand, like any value and ROI that you can show in your resume, is just, it's gold.
Great advice. Voloria, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, Greg's absolutely right. There's so much crossover, adding that value. And I would also say SEO. AI is big, SEO is never going to change. So if you can brush up on those skills and add that to your resume, that's beautiful. You may not be the SEO guy or gal, but having that knowledge, that crossover, that's valuable.
Awesome. Okay, last one. Is Martech taking people's jobs? I know you both have probably answered this about AI recently, but let's talk about that.
No, Martech can't take our jobs because a human still has to tell the platform what to do. I know it's a scary space, kind of like some people feel about AI. I think you kind of just have to evolve with it. Just watch the trends. There's some really good bloggers and YouTubers out there that's showing where the trend's going, but we will always have a job. The systems can't do it alone. So I don't think there's like robot takeover just yet. Fingers crossed.
All right. Greg, anything to add to that?
No, I think that was well put. Yeah, I mean, I think with any big changes, there's always this kind of trepidation, and there are changes. I mean, let's face it, there are some jobs that are going to go away for sure, just like there have been throughout hundreds of years of history. But history also proves that with any technological advance, there's new jobs created and more wealth created, and generally we are moving to more skilled work in general. So, I think, there might be a year or two more where there's some uncertainty around some of these things that AI is doing pretty well, but overall, I think marketers are gonna win in the long run.
Great. All right, so let's flip now to the other side of the coin here. We've got some marketing leaders in our audience, who, are hopefully as interested as we are in talking about it, in how to build a great tech stack, how to use it to its full potential. And for candidates who are in this audience, what we're discussing now is really going to help you learn exactly what challenges managers are facing and how you can position yourself to help be a solution there. So I think we've got some slides coming up here, an interesting graph from Gartner that shows the utilization of Martech tool capabilities and its kind of rapid drop as we've moved through the last kind of 3 years or so. We've all been there as marketing leaders, struggling through to make that business case to our executive team, securing the investment in the platform, working through resourcing and implementation and navigating the integrations. But this definitely isn't a build it and they will come type of type of a topic. Even with the sleekest new platforms, we are still facing utilization challenges at every turn. Some of the ones that are kind of top of mind for me, finding the right people to operate your platforms, aligning various business units with IT, specifically the marketing and IT relationship, you know, existing policies, strategies, what priorities across the organization may be different. Challenges integrating with existing platforms or historical platforms. And then, of course, that kind of corporate challenge of initiative overload. There's so much going on, all of these fire drills, like how do we focus on driving that utilization? So what happens when we underutilize? We waste money. And none of our executive leaders like that. So let's start with you know, the importance of data when it comes to utilization. Help us help ourselves, Greg. How do we overcome some of these challenges and get a more fully utilized tech stack?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, I work with a lot of very large organizations, and none of them have the problem of not having enough data. All of them have A, way too much data, and B, they aren't able to access all of this wealth of data. You know, so like 10 plus years ago, the big buzzword was big data, right? So everybody like definitely bought into that. Let's just put it that way, because they've just got mountains and lakes and lake houses of data and stuff like that. The problem now is, what do we do with it? You know, so a lot of organizations buy platforms that promise access to things, but they can't always deliver it because there's data silo. You know, we talk about organizational silos and departments and people silos, but there's data silos that are also preventing marketers from getting what they need. It's why, you know, some of the big companies I work with, it takes 2 weeks to request a piece of data and they get it back, and then by the time 2 weeks passes, something else has changed, right? So how can you operate in a fast-paced marketing world when that's the case? So I think, you know, step one is, just like we need to break down silos between people, we need to break down silos between data, get marketers better access to the data. They don't need everything, but they need the data that they need to do their jobs better. Find quick ways to get that as soon as possible, and all of a sudden you're going to see utilization actually grow quite a bit and quite quickly.
Yeah, we're definitely, you know, even internally to us, seeing that phenomenon. The more that we can create visibility within our org, the more progress we're making, and the more aligned our organization is. So I'm sure there are some other leaders on this call who are feeling that way too. Voloria, speaking of leaders, we're thinking about our talent. How do we design our talent, put our talent org structures together to make sure that we're optimizing utilization of our tech stack?
Yeah, I think sometimes as a leader, you jump too soon, worried about that talent, getting someone hired on the team. I think you kind of want to step back and look overall at all your departments, even operations and services, and think about what you want in the end for your reporting and that data. So I would start there and then build my team from that. Because once you get people in, you can kind of tinker with it. Those platforms may change over time. I was in a role where I was using Salesforce as a CRM, and then we migrated to HubSpot. So that helped my skill set, but my leader also had to make that determination. This isn't the right solution for us and what we need as an enterprise client. So you kind of want to step back and also do some data cleaning, do a little audit. Feel free to clean up, right? We're getting tons of leads, tons of prospects. That's a good thing. Clean up a bit, keep that CRM clean. That's where I would start.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else that we want to talk about around overcoming some of these hurdles when it comes to utilization? We've talked about cleaning up your data. We've talked about optimizing your team. Any other things that you've kind of tackled?
Yeah, I think the teams themselves should be full of people that don't mind being cross-trained on, you know, so like you've got an email team and a social media team and a, you know, you've got these like, again, kind of back to the silos, but I know it's a cliche, but it's real. So you need more marketers that are willing to learn a little bit about what the other teams are doing, because really where we're moving to in marketing is this omni-channel. Let's start, instead of looking at it how we want to talk to a customer, let's look at it how a customer wants to hear from us and interact with us. And to do that, you need a lot more cross like collaboration, and you need to start creating content that is very consistent across all of the channels. And so you need people that understand all of this stuff. It's more about understanding the customer journey than it is about understanding a specific marketing channel. And I think when, you know, as we kind of evolve, because also the platforms, the Martech platforms themselves are getting a lot more omni-channel as well. And so, you know, what used to be just a website CMS now can start doing other stuff and serving content to other, you know, to other places. And, you know, email platforms can serve SMS, and, you know, there's all these sort of cross-channel type things happening. And CMOs need teams that are able to jump from platform to platform and really kind of get it.
So this is an opinion question I have for the two of you, but curious what your thoughts are on, you know, like you said, Greg, you know, I come in and I'm a social media manager, something like that. And so I've got my platforms that I use to do my job, but increasingly we're seeing, you know, we're working across other platforms. What's your guidance to managers or teams in terms of making sure that their teams are proficient across all platforms and allowing and training teams to be proficient and content creators across the tech stack?
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, I mean, I think it comes working backwards from the customer. And I think if you understand what the goal is of the customer, and if you understand what they're trying to achieve, then you can be good at lots of different channels are sort of a byproduct of that process. In other words, again, if you, the old school way of doing it is, okay, I'm a marketer, I need X, Y, and Z channels in order to reach them. Let me hire for those positions. Flipping it on its head, like I was saying, allows a CMO, a senior VP marketing, whatever, to be able to look at their team and say, do these people actually get what we're trying to accomplish? Like, if they get it, they can learn social media. I'm not saying any of this stuff is easy, but like they can learn social media, they can learn email, but truly empathizing and understanding what a customer needs, understanding how to connect ROI to marketing, like that's the really tough stuff that has to be overcome.
Absolutely. And I would think one tier we didn't talk about in our tools, maybe like Miro or Lucid Chart. CMOs, get with your team, collaborate, do some process mapping. Know your business, like Greg said. You need to know your business requirements before you jump to, I need a social media manager. You need to know your customer. You need to do buyer personas. So sometimes you got to do that dirty work before you jump to hiring and getting the platforms. And these platforms can be really expensive. You want to make sure you not only do your research, you know, and find out what works for your company. You really want to make sure you're getting what's a good investment. Long term, you don't want to have to migrate your data. You know, you want to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck.
Yeah, and Voloria, I love that you brought up. So I love Miro just in general, anyway. But
we gotta stop plugging stuff on you, Greg. Like, that's fine. Yeah.
There are no brand endorsements here, you guys.
No, I know. But I think it's so powerful to visualize what you're trying to say as a leader too. Like I can't count how many times I've explained something to somebody or I've tried to explain something to someone, or I've made a PowerPoint, a Word doc, whatever. Yes. I make a chart and all of a sudden it like clicks. Either it clicks or it doesn't, but at least we're on the same page, right? And I think that visualization is so powerful, and it really helps a lot of people get it, that they're not going to read a 5-page Word doc, and I guess I don't blame them.
I couldn't help but notice a question that popped up in the Q&A, and I feel like I have to ask it because I also feel this one deeply as a marketing leader. Do you have any strategies for breaking down that sense of ownership of data? How do organizations, how should they be navigating that?
Yeah,
I think
I mean,
this goes back to this idea that, you know, we're talking about before tech stacks and integrated tech stacks, we had these individual platforms. So if I own the platform, I own the data within it. And you know, there's some organizational silos there, but how do we navigate that now that our platforms are integrated?
Yes.
And so,
I
yeah,
think that comes in some of that collaboration I was talking about. As the marketing leader, you're gonna have to work with the sales leader, the CRO, the CTO. Everyone has to work together and really break down to the bare minimum. There's no more, like Greg mentioned, just you owning social media. Yeah, you may post to social media, you don't own that. So you kind of got to break those walls down, and that's hard in organizations, I would say. That's the toughest thing I've found besides implementing and onboarding these tools. It's people, we sometimes are our worst enemies within our daily operations, you know? So just breaking that down, you know, humbling yourself and having those hard talks with your teams, all
yeah.
of the teams. Anything, Greg?
Yeah, I would add to that as well. You know, it's the shared goal. I mean, you've touched on this already, but it's like that idea of the shared goal. So it's like even just talking within marketing, because there's, you know, the email team and the social team and the search team might be kind of holding their data close to them as well. But let's stop thinking about, and like, you've got to optimize your channel, yes, but like, let's start thinking about getting that customer from point A to point B. Everybody contributes to that end goal. Like the sooner and the better you can align everyone to, okay, we win when the customer lifetime value increases. And you know what? Search, email, advertising, website, mobile app, like all of that stuff contributes to customer lifetime value. If you can get people to do that and do their part to contribute to that, then you win. That is way easier said than done. But like it is that's kind of the North Star.
yeah, definitely. Do you, are there any, I don't think we covered any of the key platforms around like data silos, or sorry, not data silos. What is the word I'm looking for? Making
Customer data
transactions.
platforms.
Yeah, CDPs or even data warehouses and how those kind of plug into your tech stack. Can you, you know, we've talked a lot about bringing the data together and sharing that data across platforms or across organizational groups, whether it be in or outside of marketing. What are some of those kind of critical pieces to execute that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, to talk about a customer data platform, I mean, they've been around for a while. It's been very recent since Gartner created a quadrant. It took them 11 years to create one. But some of that has to do with like, that's a very broad topic in and of itself. But customer data platforms, or CDPs as they're called, really were created to allow marketers to get access to the data that they really need. So like CRMs, a lot of times marketers will rely on those and they have the best possible data in them, but they're also being used by sales and they're being used by customer service. And they're not really designed for all of the uses that a marketer might have. And so CDPs have become kind of this view of, okay, let's figure out all the social signals and all of the other kind of signals that we're able to capture that don't really belong in a Salesforce or a CRM or something like that. And so having all of that in one place allows a marketer to build profiles of their customers, start personalizing based on that stuff, and it doesn't kind of muddy up other, you know, databases of stuff that salespeople or customer service, they don't really need to see that somebody liked a Facebook post or something like that, but marketers do.
Definitely, Valoria, anything to add there?
No, that was ideal. I know you guys know I love HubSpot, and I was going to say like HubSpot's that all in one. So kind of like what Greg mentioned, the marketer may need to see certain data on engagement if they open or click that email, but sometimes it's still valuable for sales. And once again, it's kind of on that leader to determine what we want to do with that information, right? Every organization's slightly different, and that makes it tough. But I think that's a good way to start.
So you mentioned that all-in-one. Now, I know that this has come up in conversations I've had around the tech stack. When do you choose from different areas and pull that stack together? And when do you go for that all-in-one solution? Does it have to do with like the size of your team or organization, your remit? What are your thoughts there?
I think there's definitely a different energy for small to mid-size, like startup versus enterprise clients, right? Sometimes we see enterprise may typically lean towards a Salesforce, but we're seeing more people go towards HubSpot. And it really comes down to what is the value for the organization. I think organizations are getting smarter about, hey, they're really digging into this and they're really figuring out what works for them. I think tech stacks will eventually get smaller. Like I think in the beginning, we talked about there's so much out there. People are actually wising up and realizing, gosh, we're paying for this and this and this. So if you can get an all-in-one solution, absolutely do it. But at the same time, I like to think about the people. You have to have that admin. You have to have that collaboration within your organization. It's not just about the tool.
I mean, I have maybe a slightly different perspective on this, but I think it also matters, as you already said, like it depends on the organization and the size and stuff like that too. So, I think there's, the bad way of talking about all-in-one is like the monolith, and there are very good monolith tools that do what they do very well, but also, to the chart shown earlier, there's not necessarily high utilization of, some of these companies, they spend millions of dollars on these huge platforms. They use, this much of them. And so they're kind of, it comes into a total cost of ownership discussion. Another factor that comes into play is, how many engineers do you have on your team that can write API? So there's a whole other discussion around composability, and that's the like microservices being tied together and stuff like that. And so, I've seen that work really well at a very large organization, Fortune 100 organization that had lots of engineers on staff, and they had people that could write code to do this. At a smaller organization, it would never work because they don't have enough people to manage all the integrations and all that stuff. And therefore, an all-in-one would be a great fit for them. It would get them what they need. Even if they use 80%, not 100%, they're still getting a lot of value for the dollar. So, all that to say, like, I think there's a lot of middle there too, where, maybe you buy a big platform, but you really need a great e-commerce experience. And so you buy that, but you use the all-in-one for everything else. And so, as a classic answer, it depends, right?
Fair enough. Okay.
And I don't want to get too nerdy there, but also keep in mind there's integrations for everything, kind of like plug and play. So you can get that all-in-one or your CRM, and there's so much you can drive into it. Your project management tools, even your internal channels like Slack, Teams. So the more you bring in, the more data you have there.
Okay, so this one, I feel a way about this question, but I think it's important that we cover it. When you guys have worked on various projects, implementing new Martech tools, what's the balance of working with external experts versus leveraging your in-house team? And how do you navigate that as a marketing org?
I would say it depends on what you need, right? Kind of like that scenario we just gave. Do you have people that can engineer? Do you have coders and developers on staff? Sometimes a marketing admin may be super junior and still doing content, and they're not in the level of automation yet. So this comes back to that leadership, having those tough discussions and figuring out when to outsource, when to get a third-party vendor, or work with somebody like me or Greg.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, and as a recovering agency owner myself, I've done a lot of this. I've had a lot of these discussions as well, and it's the internal team needs to really understand the business and really understand what needs to get accomplished. As an outside consultant, the benefit of working with people that work with a lot of other organizations and contexts and things like that is just that. They have such diverse experience in a short amount of time. They've seen a million problems, and they can come in, they can solve a problem. And then ideally, educate your team on how to take that a step further and apply it within the business and get the total cost of ownership, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a very symbiotic relationship there. And I think when it's approached well, it works. And some of those people that you start working with, you may keep them on for, you know, forever as well. But I think there's a lot of value to be brought in, you know, working with whether it's individuals or organizations that just have that breadth of experience to be able to bring in, so your team doesn't have to learn. They're already doing their day job. They're being asked to do, you know, to learn something new. Now you're also asking them to be an expert in that new thing in addition to running, you know, it's too much.
It's gonna be great.
Right. But it's doable with some coaching from, you know, from the right people. So I think, you know, I've seen it work really well many times.
Okay, so to dovetail with that, what do you guys think is holding teams back more? Lacking the detailed tool specific expertise, or trying to articulate and having a broader understanding of how everything fits together in the tech stack?
The broader understanding.
I might argue it's both, but it.
No, I agree with Voloria. Yeah, I mean, it definitely is both, but it's like, I think it's, if you don't have that, then you can't do, you know, if you don't have the second, you can't do it at all.
Definitely. Now, I know we're coming close to time here, but I'm seeing a couple questions that I want to make sure that we cover. One was around the blog recommendations, Voloria, that you mentioned at the top of this call, and we'll make sure you feel free to share some of those now if they're top of mind, but we'll make sure to get with you and share those with our participants as well.
I will. I'll list those out for you.
Okay, amazing. And then any recommendations on an all-in-one solution or any favorites you have? I think you did mention HubSpot, of course.
Yes.
Any others that come top of mind?
What about you, Greg?
I mean, I've worked with a bunch of, you know, so I would say, you know, there's different contexts for different platforms. So, you know, I've worked with Adobe and Optimizely and Sitecore and, you know, all, you know, kind of, I guess all of the above. I'm sure there's some that I haven't worked with, but, you know, I've worked with, they all have very specific areas where they're amazing, and then they have their faults, just like any platform. And I think, look at your industry, look at the size of the organization that you have, look at what you really need to be excellent, like what features you need to be excellent, because you will quickly find that, you know, those platforms, they excel in some areas, and others, they bought something a few years ago and tried to, you know, make it work, and they're still kind of working it out. So it's like, you know, it pays to pay attention to kind of, you know, these are big investments, they're important investments. And so you know, if you're just learning about the platforms, I think, you know, Voloria, I think you already said this, but like a lot of them work similarly. So learning a project management tool, yeah, you know, the button in Workfront is different than the button in Jira or whatever, but I think you can learn one and feel pretty confident that you could learn another one, you know, by just kind of switching.
Absolutely. And I think it's kind of like, once you know a little bit, you'll be confident to have those conversations internally and for interviews. You know, like you said, there's really not that much of a difference between Jira or Asana. It comes down to some basic day-to-day things. So I would say for job seekers, just feeling comfortable navigating those things and having those conversations.
Great. Well, this has been a great conversation. I was going to ask you guys for some parting words, but you've been dishing out wisdom this entire 45 minutes. If there is anything you want to close with, please let me give you the floor for a second. And if not, I'll just thank you for sharing your expertise with us. But Greg, Voloria, anything else you want to share with everyone?
No, I had a good time. Thanks for joining, and good luck to everyone out there.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad so many people are curious about this stuff, and yeah, I would love to connect with anybody that would like to.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do it again.
Well, if you're on this call and you liked what you heard and you want to learn more, stay tuned to your email. We'll be sending you a follow-up. and our social channels for more helpful marketing and Martech content and future webinars. I'm sure this is not the last time we will cover this topic. And of course, if you're looking for support with your Martech strategy or need some Martech talent, please do reach out via our website and let's get connected. And with that, we'll close out. Thank you, Valoria and Greg, very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.